Welcome to the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Ryan Van Fleet. Okay, so my first little tip for you guys is to buy an extra freezer. Order one from Lowe's or Home Depot. They're relatively inexpensive. And start stockpiling your bait. Okay? Start stockpiling your bait. Why? Because when it's time to go fishing, you're going to need bait. There you go. And a lot of it sometimes. Now, we're getting into dolphin fishing season, so I hope you guys stockpiled all those bonitos that you caught in the spring. For me, I have 3 freezers, and if I could have another one, I would, but Melinda won't let me have one. So, one freezer right now is completely full of bonitos, which I'm going to get into the fishing tip right now with those. So, I use the bonitos for 2 different things. One, I use them for grouper fishing, and I use them for dolphin fishing. And some, I use them for deep drop fishing as well. But what I've been finding is, and I'm not going to talk too much about this today, is that on certain areas the fish just don't want to touch the bonito, then they want other stuff, which is very interesting. So despite what you guys think that those fish on the bottom eat anything, they don't. And don't listen to the guy that's telling you that, because it's untrue. And if they're telling you that, they don't fish enough. So there's my advice for you. Think for yourself and think smart. Sometimes people want to put things in your brain to mess with you, okay? Which happened a lot to me down here. And I'm not going to get into that today, but I want you guys to start using your brains and always come prepared to the party, okay? So, meaning that fish just don't always eat anything. So, true. And that goes for dolphin. Okay? Dolphin fishing can actually be kind of tough. And the guys that say they eat anything all the time, they have not been out there enough to see what happens. And as we go through the course of the year, the season with dolphin, I'm going to go through the scenarios that you're going to face. And I'm going to talk about them because there's a lot of scenarios that you face, especially I see it when I'm running dolphin charters. I'm running 3 to 4 weeks in a row. So I see a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't get to see just from the experiences that I have out there. So, and I'll talk about that kind of stuff over the course of the season. So when you guys see it, then you guys will be a little bit more prepared for that, for those situations. So, okay, so you get out there on the weed line, you see a big frigate bird, you run over him with all your trolling lures, and nothing happens. You're like, whoa, boy, I know there's something there. I know there's something there. And you go back and you do it again, and nothing happens. Okay, so this is where those bonitos come into play. Now, before I leave the dock, when I know that there's a lot of schoolies out there, I mean, honestly, before I leave on any dolphin trip, I cut 1 full or sometimes 2 full bonitos, small chunks, and those go into a small white bucket. So when I see a bird and I've done my thing on him, I can't raise any fish, what I'll do is I'll try to figure out which way he's flying, get ahead of him, and then you can figure out which way the bird's flying and try to cut him off. So like I said, it's just timing. You have to do some calculations in your brain, but you got to figure out which way those fish are swimming with the current. And then what I want you to do is have those chunks ready, as when the bird approaches, you can get ahead of that. You can get ahead of him, and you can start tossing a bunch of those damn pieces of bonito chunks. Just spread them out over the water ahead of that bird. So you got to get ahead of the fish to do this, okay? And then watch what happens. You're going to raise those fish up. They're not wanting any of your trolling baits. They want something small, and you got to get them. You got to get them excited, and that's how you do it. Now, a lot of guys use pilchards for this, and I use pilchards sometimes if I have them, but if I don't have them, I always have the bonito meat. Even if I have the pilchards, I always have that bonito meat with me because I don't want to give up my live bait, the live chum out there if I don't have to, because they might be only small fish, so I don't want to throw some pilchards at something that's not worth it when I know that I'm going to use them for something else, for a larger fish, or use them to make some drops on some muttons on the way in. Now, you can also use those chunks when you find those large mats out there. For the guys that want to run and gun, you need to have the dude get up in the front and have him start throwing the chunks out first, and then have the guy standing behind him waiting to throw the plug to catch the dolphin that are going to come up after him. So that's something else you can use those chunks for, but you need to have them ready, okay? You need to have them ready. Now, for those of you guys that have outriggers, this is something else you can do, okay? So what I like to do is when I know that the fish are kind of small, or if there's a lot of weeds and I need to get to the fish, what I'll do is I'll take out the spinning rods, okay? And then I will put pieces of ballyhoo and just small chunks of, I'm sorry, not ballyhoo, but small chunks of bonito on long shank hooks, and then I'll put them on my outriggers, okay? And then as I get into and then I'll pull those chunks off the riggers, and I'll have the clients hold the spinning rods. And as I ease into the fish, or ease into the spot where I know there's fish, rather than have them cast, I'll have them pop the spinning rods off the riggers, and I'll have them start freelining the bonito chunks. That works extremely well, extremely well. So when I know that I don't want to pull a ballyhoo through there, I will, like I said, I'll get out those spinning rods. I'll put the chunks on there, and then I'll approach the weed mats and I'll say, pop them. Open the bail and start feeding them. So I have two people do this, and then they'll feed the bonito chunks they'll just start freelining them. And the dolphin will come out of there if they're there, and they're going to destroy them. I also do that with squid too. So it just gives the people a little bit more action when the fish are smaller and they want to fight them with spinning rods. Or if I'm looking to rack up big numbers, that's something that I'll do too, because what that does is I've already got the spinning rods ready. The big conventionals are already put away, and then boom, I get one fish in, I can rebait one, and then, it just, if the fishing's working right, I can do that. So that's something else you could do, is just put the chunks on the outriggers, guys. And when you get close to the spot, you pop them off. And boom, there you go. Those dolphin will come right out of there. And what will happen too is that sometimes they want a really fast moving bait. So sometimes people just can't reel fast enough. So what you can do as a boat driver is that you can just skim those chunks of ballyhoo, chunks of bonito across those weed mats. And then when you stop, when you can see them, you just slow the boat down, drop, and then speed up. So there's just lots of different things you can do with bonito chunks. But mainly I use them to raise fish. Now, skipjack tuna works the best for dolphin because it just has a different enzyme. So they just tend to like that meat a little bit more. But remember, if you do catch a skipjack, that you do need an HMS permit to keep that. So please keep that in mind. I would honestly get an HMS permit, because when you catch a big yellowfin this summer on a sea witch rigged over a ballyhoo and you don't have an HMS permit and you get stopped and they check you for that and you got a big yellowfin tuna, that can really wreck that moment. So it can wreck your moment too if you have a skipjack in there and you don't have an HMS permit. So get an HMS permit online. That way you can keep those skipjacks legally. But I wanted to talk a little bit about bonito meat, because I know a lot of guys know about it, but a lot of guys that listen to the podcast are really starting just to learn a little bit. And there's a lot of little things with bonito meat. But I do a lot more with that stuff. So with bonito meat, that I'll talk about that in a future podcast. I'm running a little bit long here. And I still have a ballyhoo rigging video to do for you guys today after I record this podcast. Yes, ballyhoo rigging. So I got up at 3 a.m. to get all my stuff done so I could clear my schedule to do a rigging video for you guys. So after this podcast is done, I'm going to release a Ballyhoo rigging video for the Facebook group only. It's a private group, okay, for my listeners only. So the name of the group is the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast, and I created the group for you guys to be a community, and it's awesome to see you guys interacting on there and sharing some fishing stuff. It's very cool. Ballyhoo rigging. Now, before I do the video of the Ballyhoo rigging here after the podcast, I want to talk a little bit about it. First, there's a lot of Ballyhoos, like how to Ballyhoo rig on YouTube. This video is not going to go on YouTube. I have one on there, but that's back when I first started the podcasting, and I wasn't happy with it. So, and I had put it on my list to do a Ballyhoo rigging video again and show you guys actually what I do. And what I don't do is I don't poop the Ballyhoo. Why? Because honestly, I want the bait to be a fuller bait. I want it to be as natural as I can, okay? And everybody says that the Ballyhoo washes out and does all this other stuff if you don't poop them. Guys, I've been rigging Ballyhoo the same way now for many years, and my baits don't wash out because I didn't poop the Ballyhoo. Okay? So, and number one, I run a lot of skipping baits, so I want those baits durable. And if you poop them Ballyhoo, then it takes away their the fullness of the bait. And I don't feel they skip right. Now, if you're going to go for a really meticulous swimming Ballyhoo that you got to pull at 5 miles an hour or something, then you probably have to poop them, and that's like the sailfish guys and the marlin guys do that. But guys, I'm pulling baits at 7 miles an hour, sometimes more, and I'm skipping those babies across the water. When that bait is not pooped, it is durable. It holds up better to the conditions and to the waves. Okay, so that's my experience. I do not poop Ballyhoo. And it's like, you can go ahead and keep pooping it and doing all that stuff that they show you what to do that they've been talking about for years. But I don't do that. Okay? Nor do I cut off the fins either. Oh, the bait's going to spin. Nor do I push the eyes out. I don't do that either. So, like I mentioned in another podcast, anybody's going to tell you in the past that you've heard is how many Ballyhoo have you, or how many fish in the ocean have you seen with no eyes? Eyes are striking. You want those eyes because it triggers a strike. So I leave the eyes in, and I've never had a problem with a bait spinning. If I have a problem with a bait spinning, it's because that the hook's not lined up center, and it's not tight enough, and it's not been sewn enough into the bait. Okay, so. And I didn't break the back, or I didn't get the backbone broke. Now, I do break the backbone in all my Ballyhoo, okay? I do that, and I break them once, and then once I get them to the boat, then I limber them up before I throw them in the water to run. Now, I must be doing something right, too, because I'm catching a lot of big fish on them, and I have been for years, and last year, man, I think I didn't fish offshore very much, but when I did, one of my last trips, I raised 2 blue marlin on my rig, on two separate ones. So when you're raising blue marlin on your baits, that's when you're doing stuff right. That means the baits are working. You got the right color combos out. So that's just kind of reassurance that you're doing everything right. Is when you raise 2 blues in a spread. And I'm like, yeah, that was a good way to end the offshore trolling season last year. And I think that was one of my last trips out there to go dolphin fishing, because after that we had the big storm, and it really messed things up for quite a while. And then the dolphin fishing got a little challenging after that hurricane in the Bahamas. So as far as the weather went, then I moved into wahoo season. Now, I rig my Ballyhoo the same for wahoo, guys. I never poop them. And I want you guys to look and see how many wahoo I caught last year on non-poop Ballyhoo. So that tells you something. Not to mention, it saves you a whole bunch of time. So the night before my brining process, guys, my binding process, I've been doing the same thing for several years. So what I do is I go to the marina and I get salt water and I put it in a kitty litter bucket. And I get salt water from Tavernier Creek and I bring it home. And I use, like in the summer, I use my initial brine. Like, let's say the hotter the water, I use more brine. So I use Bionic brine. I buy it off Amazon. You can get it out of my store. And that is the best brine. I do not like to make my own brine. I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to buy a bunch of salt and shit and like have more stuff at my house than I need to. So I just buy. I've been buying Bionic brine for years. What I do is the night before, if I'm going offshore dolphin fishing, I mean, honest to God, I'm like over 50 ballyhoo get thawed out or more and into the ice bucket. And I use sometimes I'll use a whole, like a one full container for summertime fishing when the water's warmer, okay? So I want those baits brined. I want them brined. I want them really nice. Bionic bait brine is the absolute best brine I've ever used. I don't like the other stuff. This is the stuff I like. I'm not going to change. And I remember one year there was a shortage on it, and I got really frustrated. But anyways, I put it into the ice bath at around 9, 7 o'clock at night, and it soaks all night. It thaws out really slow, and then in the morning, I take it out of the ice, and it's ready to roll. The baits are nice. They're all firm. And then from there, I sort out the bad ballyhoo, okay? Because what I do is I take subpar ballyhoo. I'm like looking at each one, and not every ballyhoo is going to be perfect. Soft bellies don't go into soft bellies go last, okay? And they get extra brine. So what I'll do is I'll sort through all the ballyhoo, and I'll pick the absolute best ones to go in the A spread, like go in the front. I call that those are my A players. And then I got B player ballyhoos, okay? And then I got the C's, and the C's go last. And those usually are the ones I don't rig, but I save for a hot bite, and then they get pitched at the end of the day, or I use them for chunk. So I have to, then like I said, I sort through all those baits and I pick the absolute best baits to go into my spread. So that before they even get a hook in them. Now, as far as what I do after the hooks are in them, what I do for my ballyhoo trays, I just lay a paper cloth down in my trays, and that absorbs all the moisture. And from there, then I hit them again with Bionic brine on the bellies only, okay? The bellies. I want to make sure the belly is solid. I want to make sure that the belly is will stand up to the abuse, okay? The rest of the bait does pretty good, but the belly is what I'm most concerned with. As far as how I put the hook through the belly and all that stuff, if I don't get it centered right, I go to another bait. So now I think it's time to do the video for you guys. I hope you learned a little bit about, like I said, I don't poop the ballyhoo. I don't take out the eyes. I don't do all sorts of crazy shit like cut the fins off of them. I don't have problems with my bait spinning. So, I mean, there are just so many things out there that complicate the world. And it just kind of frustrates me sometimes because people really get brainwashed by some of this shit that you're seeing, and especially when experts tell you what to do. I mean, there's been a lot of experts out there over the course of the years, and the ballyhoo gets degraded over time, and the acid goes through, and your bait washes out. Bullshit. So I don't have a problem with that. And the guys that fish with me are like, "Oh my God, he didn't poop the ballyhoo." It's and they look at me, they're like, "Wow." And I got my buddy Bennett doing it. He pulled ballyhoo for 4 hours the other day. He's like, "Oh my God, it works." I was like, "Yeah, man." I mean, I wouldn't bullshit you guys. So you just gotta pick the baits. You gotta be smart. Like I said, I use dink ballyhoos, but for the rigging video, I'm gonna have some mediums. So that's all I got right now. So how I'm gonna leave it today is, guys, I'm strictly here to give you guys some guidance and help you guys make your own decisions. And if I can do that, then I've done my job. So but what it comes down to is how you guys do it on your own and how you guys execute it, whether you guys are practicing. Practice, 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 guys. So practice makes perfect in this sport, and that's just how any sport works. So fishing is such an awesome, awesome sport. Anybody can do it, and you can really excel at it if you spend the time to learn it and take it to the next level. And like I said, you take it to the next level by practicing and more practicing and more practicing. That's all I got for today, guys. I've got to get this video done for you guys so I can get it up on the Facebook group tonight. Thanks for listening. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at goodkarmasportfishing_FL_keys. Check out my private Facebook group, the Good Karma Sport Fishing Facebook group. And check out my website, www.goodkarmasportfishing.com. Thanks for listening. Leave the small dolphin for the boat behind me this weekend. And remember, anytime you're fishing, it's all good.